Hi everyone, welcome. These two systems that you can see, one above the other, are the so-called original red wiggler worms, bins number 1 and 2, which at this point we kind of overlooked their 200th day in service, which was yesterday. So happy 200 days in service to the original red wigglers, fed 17 times so far. Last feeding went in 12 days ago. I rewatched the video from last time and it was a fairly generous feeding, so hopefully they've managed to do away with a good portion of it. Well, even if they didn't, they're getting more. You can see how I arranged the plastic covers here last time. The whole idea was that perhaps the systems would benefit from having access to a little bit of fresh air and ventilation so that maybe some of the moisture in there would evaporate. So that's why I would normally do something like that. So we'll get to see how that's progressing. So I'm going to get these systems up on the bench and we're going to get to getting them fed. Let's get to work. Oh, and how do you like that? Pears and strawberries. And a good many of them. I'm sure they're going to appreciate that. We've just got to get that stuff into the worm bin before it starts melting and losing all of its juices. It just came out of the freezer, so it should stay solid for a little while longer. So let's point down to see what's happening in the worm bins. And we can get them fed. Under the plastic, it should have remained pretty damp. A lot of times just the presence of springtails is already a sign that things are a little bit damp. Although I could already tell immediately, just from the weight of these things, carrying them over to the bench here, just from their weight, I could tell that they were quite damp as well. So now the feeding also was meant to include some coffee that I've got here in this carton, but I've also got 2 days worth of coffee filters here. So I think we're just going to recycle these old coffee filters that were our feeding zone indicators and replace them with new ones. So I am curious to see how the feeding zone from last time is progressing. We gave them a good bit of food in both systems. And we even still made kind of a point of the fact that, hey, even at this age, we're still adding bedding, which means we've not yet entered the foraging phase. So when I do that, I just stop putting new bedding in, let the worms work down whatever residual bedding still remains within the material. Well, yeah, leaving things uncovered I'm sure helps over time. Aerating too, I hope, helps. I'm just going to try to get some of the more damp material that's down low out to the surface. And at the same time I'm blending in this stuff that is on the surface, which is just a little bit drier. Not by much, I must admit, but hey, every little bit helps and no harm in trying. Gives us a little peek as to how the material looks outboard of the feeding zone too. Sometimes I'll skip disturbing the outer edges of the systems like that. And I don't really keep track of when I do that, but I just kind of randomly throw doing that in once in a while, so maybe we didn't even check the outer edges last time. I can't recall. I just skimmed the video from last time. I didn't really carefully watch it. Kind of watching half-heartedly there. But I think what I really was interested in taking away from that video was the feeding, you know. How did it look? Since it was 12 days ago, what should we expect? It was generous, as I mentioned earlier, so we might see some leftovers. But then again, you never know. The worms sometimes do have a tendency to prove me wrong when I make little predictions like that. So that was a little reversal of how I'll normally do things, saving the aeration of the outer edges till the end. But this time we kind of did it in the beginning as a precursor to checking out the feeding zones. Now I'm bumping into some of these slow composting items such as a pumpkin stem. If you find a pumpkin stem in one of my paired up systems, likely to find one in the other system's feeding zone too. Look at this. We've definitely got something going on here in this system. Nice little worm party happening here, and if I'm careful, the worms will sort of realize that they're not where they were 10 seconds ago. that they're kind of out here in the open, not like in the light, wanting to retreat from the light, but also doing a pretty good job of hanging on. Over here on the side, there's this glob of worms that looks like it's about to drop off, so I think we're gonna cut that one short there. As much fun as that was. So it looks like the worms have come out to enjoy the lovely meal we left for them last time. I thought I saw little bits of what might have been, yeah, I think I threw like an entire pear into each system, so there was some sort of a pear or apple or something along those lines placed into each bin. Not broken up, so that was left to the worms, and that's what they're doing there, is trying to get to the bottom of it. So a little bit of leftover there, but certainly not enough to derail us or turn us away from the idea of giving them more today. So I wonder what we're going to encounter here in bin number 2. Not too surprising. There's another pumpkin stem like we saw in bin number 1 here. Look at this. This apple hardly looks like it's been touched. Oh my goodness. Oh well, no. I'm just noticing here at the bottom of the apple there's a couple worms inside of it, but not quite what I was expecting. According to this, the original red wigglers favor pear over apple, it would seem. Oh my goodness. Do I do it again? Why not? Just a little bit. I just can't resist. When I saw how much food I placed into these systems last time, it was just so abundant. It seemed reasonable to expect that there'd be worm parties going on here. Oh boy, I better help this little guy. One little wormy dropped and was still hanging on to the edge of the bin. It was just me moving the bin aside that caused the little guy to drop. But yeah, that was yet another fun little examination of the feeding zone. And man, we didn't even go through half of it yet. There is a lot of worm activity flanking the pit that we made here, into which today's feeding is going to go. So let me grab some bedding that we could use for this. What I have are some napkins I'd like to get rid of. So for each system they'll get 2. And these aren't just any old napkins, these are big napkins. So let's spread them out so we have coffee to include with today's feeding. I think we'll start with a little bit of that. Oh, and I got my grit too. I usually am kind of Johnny on the spot, getting the grit ready to be used as part of most of my feedings, but so frequently I just forget to even look over there and remind myself that it's part of the idea is to give them some of that too. These pumpkin stems, you know, I kind of ignore them, but wow, okay. This one is softening. Like I was able to chip off a little piece of it right there, and the whole thing kind of flexed in my hand as I squeezed it. It's still very tough. Some portions of it just won't give whatsoever. This one here I think was somehow added later or something. I don't recall, but it is also holding up pretty good. So these will come in new as our replacement feeding zone indicators. So we'll also include these old ones, the supplemental bedding in the feeding zones. And now we can start laying in what appears to be a little bit more pear. So we'll just throw this piece of pear in here, and it looks like there's another pretty good size piece right there. Maybe this as well. So that seems like a fair distribution of the pear so far. And a bunch of yummy strawberry too. Ooh yeah, look at the size of these things. Huge. Alright, very nice. And before I forget, let's just get the grit in here. And that's about it. Trying to get rid of different types of bedding materials is always interesting. Sometimes it's pretty processed stuff, sometimes it's completely unprocessed stuff. And on this go around, napkins were the major bedding du jour. So that's pretty much it for our feeding here. I'm just debating in my mind, do I return the plastic covers loosely, again, the way we did last time, to try to allow for a little bit of drying? I'm almost feeling like it would be unnecessary. I really like the way things feel in these systems. They're heavy for sure, definitely heavy to hold and lift, but not too damp anymore, I think. So plastic covers can go on a little bit more thorough, closer to covering everything, but still in a loose and sloppy way to allow for ongoing breathing. I think that'll work well. So I got a couple things I got to take care of getting cleaned up and put away around here. Before I go really quick, let me just say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.